and a very warm welcome to the first edition of Women's Empowerment Hour, brought to you by learmedia.tv. My name is Siobhan Gannon, and I'm founder of Embodied Soulful Living and Yoni Awakening, a journey of self-discovery for women. So I basically help women awaken and embody their passion, their purpose, and their power. And I'm an advocate for sexual wellness and self-pleasure education for women and girls. I'm also an intuitive soul guide, PPT practitioner, self-development, a mentor, teacher speaker, and a life coach. So my first guest here today is the lovely Hazel Basnet O'Doherty. And Hazel is from Limerick. She's a friend and colleague, and I'm delighted to have her as my first guest. And Hazel helps clients increase confidence, release negative self-image so they can live a happier and more fulfilled life. She's a coach, a QTT, Reiki and Rahani practitioner, and her business is Blossom Healing, and you can find her at blossomhealing.ie. And she has recently created her own online course for women called Safe in Your Own Arms, a journey to self-love. And she created that, just came out last month. And the reason I invited Hazel on for the first conversation in this program is I love the work she does around the heart, and her online course is centered all around heart living and helping women to connect back in with their heart, come out of that headspace of overwhelming stress, especially in the times we're living, and just the importance of connecting in where that space is a feeling of safety, connection, and you can really function at a much better level from your heart space. So welcome, Hazel.
Hi Siobhan, thanks a million for having me. I'm honoured to be your first guest.
Do you want to tell us just a little bit about, I suppose, about your experience and how you started your holistic health journey?
Yeah, so I would have started initially, I would have really started going to a coach initially myself, and that's how I came across a coaching course. So I suppose the place in my life I was at the time, I was kind of at a low place, I'll say. And I met a beautiful lady called Caroline Curtis and did some coaching with her. And I went on then to do her life coaching course, Coach for Life. And from that, I really felt like I'd found my calling. And I really fell into the coaching, and I loved helping friends and family with it. And then I got into Reiki and Rahani, which I really, really love. And also QTT. I'm a QTT practitioner, as you are yourself. So yeah, I think really it's come from my own personal journey, as I think it has with a lot of coaches and healers. They've been through their own troubled times, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's good because you can only help someone from what you've healed from yourself, so yeah, so that's how I got onto the path. It's something I absolutely love doing, and I really love helping people to learn to live from the heart space, and to get out of that overwhelm and monkey mind, and come back down into your heart and into what's important. Yeah, so.
And how has that made a difference when you started to learn to do that yourself? How has that impacted your life? I know you also work in business development, so you have two jobs going at once. So how's that impacted your life? Just learning how to connect in with yourself in that way and live from that space.
It's huge because I suppose business development is a completely different kettle of fish, completely. So I work with AIB Merchant Services, and in my day job, I sell card machines and online processing payments. So it's a completely different world, if you like. But it's really helped me. All of the tools I've learned from my courses have really helped me to, I suppose, cope with the stresses, to to basically connect in with clients in a different way. So when I'm meeting customers, I can see patterns. We have different conversations, if that makes sense, and it's a more personal sale. It's not just the in and out and about the sale, it's a different conversation. And it's also helped me, I suppose, because it's sales and targets, it's really helped me to be intentional about selling, if that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, it's completely different, but it's good to have a foot in both worlds.
Yeah. And before you learned those tools of how to connect in with your heart center, when you're working there, was probably, that's a lot of monkey mind, a lot of stress, sitting at a laptop all day and all of that. And you know, when you have technical issues and you're not in, I mean, it can be like somebody's just pulled the whole rug from under you, you know. And so I suppose learning to connect back in and be more mindful of being in your body as well makes all the difference, doesn't it? Because
completely. And I've actually been able to help my colleagues as well, when they've kind of rang me stressed, and I can recommend like a tapping video, or I can pull them out of it a little bit. So that, and I think in another level as well, especially with the way everything is at the moment, and there's a lot of customers that I'd be calling who their businesses have gone down, the drain, they're stressed, they're worried. So those tools, they help hugely, from a human perspective in that way. I think it's so obviously you have your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, and your physical body. So that's doing that kind of work fulfills me spiritually, and energetically. And then the other is mental, emotional, and physical for me. So it's kind of a nice merge of the two, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It's also just, you know, because it is kind of Women's Empowerment Hour. So I know from even clients coming in to me, people who really want to step into this, you know, they might have this calling or this real pull towards stepping out of what they're in already and doing something. It may not even be in the holistic world, it could be something completely different, but it's taken that step out. And often they feel they have to completely leave the job they're in, or they feel like, you know, the whole world's going to turn upside down. But that isn't the case. I know when I started off, I'd been in businesses with my ex-husband, but then I did lots of things while I was training at the same time, just to keep financial flow. So even with you there, I know your real passion is in the holistic health world and that, but you were just saying to me, we were talking earlier about how you've kind of moved from, oh, I just want to get out of this job, to actually, you know what, you were looking at the positives of what it's doing for you at the moment as you're you know, you're going into the next phase of your life. So just to talk a little bit about that for women that are kind of thinking and they're stuck, or their life has to totally turn on its head in order to move into the next step. And that's not really true. It depends on which perspective you're coming from. You can do it in parts.
Yeah, completely. And it does, it gives, it definitely empowers you, because you have your monthly wage, you have money coming in, you're not worried about it. You come from a different space than when you're looking at whatever the other business is that you're looking to get into. It's not a desperation energy. So it's much more, you can go into it more with your heart, I suppose, because it's like you have you're not worried about your safety, your security, your family, paying the bills, your that side of it is taken care of, and it's just you can go in with the creative side of it, how you want to start your own business, and you can have money to put into that business as well, which is really important when you're starting off. So
we also know that when you're wanting to manifest something different in your life, then it's important not to be coming from that state of lack or fear. So it's that takes that off. And also, you know, women, it's kind of an inbred thing or program or condition of women is even always feeling they have to be taking responsibility for everybody else. So if they did something for themselves, how's it going to, then I won't be able to do this, I won't be able to do that, I won't be able to do the other for this person, that person, or the other, whether it's kids, partner, or even the job. Some people get so fixated or connected into the job they're in, because women, they have this thing of not letting people down. It's programmed in, like we're conditioned in to be that way. Luckily, we're unconditioning ourselves at the moment. But you know, that tendency of women to always be putting everybody before themselves, and that's what I love about. I bought Hazel's course for my daughter, actually, so she wasn't just getting all of my stuff, but just bringing women back to the space of like it's safe in your own arms, the journey to self-love, but remembering that a woman has to come first. Now, obviously, you have your responsibilities as a parent. If you have certain responsibilities that you have to maintain, but a woman has to put herself first, really, in order for everything else to work out fine. Because it has a ripple effect on the children, on the partner, on the family, on the world in general, the community, and so forth. So, just back to say, maybe talking a bit about how you work with somebody when they come in, say, in regards to healing the heart first, so they can connect in from that space and put themselves first. What is the journey back to self-love? What does it mean to you?
So the journey back to self-love for me, and a lot of, like when I initially did my coaching course, it would have been based on the work of Louise Hay. So it's something I always go into, and it's basically healing your relationship with yourself first, because obviously what you're giving to somebody else and the amount of love that you can give to somebody else, it really depends on what you're allowing in and what you can give back as well. So your relationship, every relationship starts with the relationship itself. So nearly all of the work I do comes back to self-love, if I'm being honest. And most of it, when we initially start, it's kind of looking at that relationship, and it's always forgiveness work. That's a huge part of it. You know, forgiving yourself, and then obviously any traumas that you may be holding, any resentments, anything that's basically keeping you stuck, and letting that go, releasing it, working on that, so that you are able to allow the love into yourself, and just working on your relationship with you and your inner child, healing all of that. It always seems to come back to that with me, the healing the inner child, the forgiveness, and then basically the little techniques to bring to your daily life to help you to begin to, not begin, but to love yourself more. Yeah.
And you know, the inner child is really important, but often people say, what's this? Everyone's always talking about the inner child. Can you just talk a little bit about your version of the inner child, what it means to you, and how you work with people?
Sure.
Simplify.
So for me, the inner child is it's basically the child within. So how you, when you were younger, how you were spoken to, I suppose, as a child, is how you would speak to yourself and that little child within you. So if you were criticized, or if you were if you weren't spoken to lovingly, it might be the way that you will speak to yourself as you're older. So it could be very, very negative, harsh critic. You can be very hard on yourself. It can come down to so basically your relationships can sorry, Siobhan, I completely lost my train of thought.
Oh, you're grand. Yeah.
So I would do a lot of energetic.
Well, even if you could give, I know you've loads of probably an example. Maybe you could give about an experience you had yourself and how you related that back to your inner child. Maybe your conditioning when you were younger, and also even with the inner child. It's around, I suppose, and that comes up in QT as well. It's the conditioning, but it's the meaning you've put on something that's happened that really is the core issue. So it always goes back to self, because it's always going to be the meaning you put on a situation that you've experienced in life. So, and we tend to behave from that space. So I'd often say, an example for me is if I'm having a little thing with my teenage son, he's maybe out of teenage now. It sounds like he's 19. So, but I'd always, you'd be having an argument maybe, and suddenly you realise, oh, I'm coming from my 17-year-old self, like, and you may be bickering where you know that it's kind of gone absolutely ridiculous. Whereas what I found is when I now am more mindful of the space I'm coming from, because from the mother's perspective, really from the child, what the child wants is to feel safe and secure. So when the mother, we're taking the mother because we're doing women's empowerment program, obviously men come into it as well in that way, but from the mother's perspective and from my own experiences, when I've been more mindful that I'm coming from that space and he may be kind of having the argument back and we're getting nowhere and it's getting really silly, that I realized that he's not feeling safe because I'm coming from a child perspective at him, not from the parental, not from my grown up self. So the minute I then connect back to the heart and ground in better, then his whole behavior changes and so does mine. I stop being petty and about that, and suddenly then we have the open lines of communication again. Things have changed. So it can be that easy to change a situation from the inner child perspective when you actually are more mindful and you become aware and awake to the fact that this is my inner narrative from an experience I've had since when I was young, and I'm thinking now that we're like mirror images of each other, aren't we? So yeah, whereas the child is, and you see it so much with parents and parents bickering with their kids, but actually the child just wants to feel safe and secure, and they're still looking from that from the parents. And even as what am I, 48, you see 50-year-olds and still looking for that from their parents, still looking for guidance and direction from the parents. So just be mindful of that. Like, so can you think of any experiences yourself? I know you have a little guy as well, Ben, who's 5, is it?
5,
yeah,
5.
yeah.
And sometimes, actually, I will give an example. And it was only recently I was just driving down to the shop and he was in the back of the car and the guard stopped us to ask where we're going, obviously with the way everything is at the moment. And I suppose my little rebel inside revolted. And as I was very nice, but as I was driving away, I was giving out, that we can't go anywhere without anything. And he said, my 5-year-old in the back. Now this is an example of my child, and my child actually looking at me going, hang on, what are you saying? Said, Mommy, but it's not always going to be like this. It's only going to be for a little while. And I went, oh my God, I'm totally acting from my rebel, whatever age it was.
Switch.
It was really, really apparent in that moment. I was like, okay, there's a 5-year-old saying it, but look, there's hundreds of examples like that. There really is. And there's a beautiful, you've probably seen, I don't know if you've seen that post, it's a statue of the 2 people that are fighting, they're turned backwards. Have you ever seen that statue?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's lovely.
That's so true. It really, really is.
Yeah.
That we can react from that space, and all that we want is to connect, really. But it's that conditioning, and it's that doesn't allow us to, because it's, and normally when people react in that way as well, and it's such an emotive response, it's coming from that, because it's not from that one situation most of the time. It's from layers and layers and layers of what's happened, and it's bringing it up again, so
just triggered it.
Yeah, completely.
Go off the head, like, yeah.
And if you feel that part, or those traumas, that's going to continue to happen. So if there's a constant theme in your life of it, it's kind of when that needs healing, so yeah, it's huge. It really is.
So patterns, it is about recognizing the patterns, isn't it? Yeah. And they're going back to the inner child, kind of when you were younger and stuff, and then you just say repeated. Yeah. So forgiveness, you mentioned forgiveness, which is massive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
And self-forgiveness being the main one. So could you talk a little bit about, I suppose, what forgiveness means to you, because how you work with forgiveness with clients?
So a lot of the work, and I'll give you an example of an exercise I do. It's basically to go in energetically, and it's actually with the inner child. So you're going basically back to your inner child, and you're connecting there, and you're asking, who do you need to forgive, and allowing that person to come in and basically doing a healing with them. It's huge. It brings up so much.
That's the meditation that you is that the meditation I've done?
it's along the same lines, but it's a
That
little
was
bit.
beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The one, and Hazel actually has a pre-meditation, so the link will be here at the end, that you can just go on and do some. Is it inner child you have there? The meditation.
Forgiveness, actually.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so there's a free meditation at the end as well, so you can just pop in and put in your email, and you'll get that in your inbox. So I'll leave the link there at the end.
And it's only a quick one. It's only 10 minutes, so it's very easy to do at any time. But it's so simple, but so powerful. And that's actually what I find. You probably find it yourself. It's the simple things that are the most
simplicity, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And we're always trying to make things complicated, aren't we?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
It's actually bringing it back to basics, like even with the heart, just connecting in with yourself and breathing into your heart. And the most simple things are the most powerful. Like I think I said that to you before. Just dropping into your heart and breathing in the pink compassion and out the negative emotions. It's so simple and it doesn't take that long, and it's so powerful. Really.
Would you be able to run through just a little, like a minute or two, just to get a sense?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So just so they'll get a sense, and then then people can just pop on and get your meditation as well and see if it resonates. So,
okay, yeah. Not on the spot at all.
just spell try. Just it doesn't have to be a big long thing. Just a couple of minutes, and just so that people can get a sense of this is how it's done. Okay.
So this is just a very simple one you can do. So just if you take a deep breath in, we'll count of 8 and hold for 4, and just release for 7. And just take another deep breath in, and as you're taking a deep breath in, just call your energy back so that you're completely here and present in this moment right now. And just release any stress or tension that you may be holding. And just final time on the in-breath, just take a deep breath in, call your energy back to yourself. And just on the out-breath, release any stress or any tension that you may be holding. And just as you take another deep breath in, just sigh it out and drop into your heart. Just put your hand on your heart and connect in with your heart center, which is in the middle of all of your energy centers and where your soul lives. And just connecting into your heart, just begin to breathe in through your heart. So taking a deep breath in, and you can picture your heart. And as you're taking a deep breath in, you can just breathe in that beautiful pink love and compassion. And just breathe out any negative emotions or tension that you may be feeling. And just as you take another deep breath in, just think of somebody that you love. It can be a child, a friend, a relation, a pet, but somebody that brings a smile to your face when you think of them. And just connect in with that love. Connect in with your heart. And just feel that beautiful pink compassion and love filling up your heart as you breathe in. And just on the out breath, just notice how any of those negative emotions or tension or fear you may be holding are just releasing from your body, out of your energy field. And just take one more deep breath in, connecting to that gorgeous heart energy. And just on the out breath, release. And it's just that simple. It's only a very small exercise just to connect in.
Lovely. Yeah, I feel that now. So yeah, that just gives an idea of just come more into the body.
Yeah, completely.
It's, I think as well, it's around when there's trauma or stress and everyone's in the head, but often through trauma that you've had from years before, even, you tend to just, you leave your body, parts of you kind of just leave the body, and it's about bringing, as you say, all the parts back. You'd function from such a much better place. Can you talk, maybe give an example of, maybe a trauma or something that you've had or you've overcome, and how you would bring somebody through the process, or just a little bit about your own experience,
Okay.
working with forgiveness, inner child, and heart coherence, and that. Just kind of, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I suppose when I
Definitely
was young.
not on the spot.
So when I was younger, I would have done a lot of partying. I would have been out a lot, and I enjoyed myself. But it got to the stage where I was partying quite a lot, and I wasn't enjoying myself anymore. And I was going out just for the sake of it, but I wasn't in a great place. Um, and from that, I got into a space where I got into some toxic relationships, and one in particular which wouldn't have, would have had very self-destructive patterns. It would have been an abusive relationship, and it would have been something that I really wasn't loving myself, and I wasn't loving myself at all, to be to be honest with you. So it got to a stage where I had to change something because I couldn't keep going on like that. And that's when I kind of found coaching, and that's when I started getting into all of this work. But yeah, it took a long time for me to forgive the person I was in the relationship with. And that, being honest with you, it was affecting everything else because I was coming from a place of fear rather than love, because I was in my mind.
Yeah.
I would, being honest, I would have built up walls around my heart, which I think a lot of people do when they get hurt. Um, and the unfortunate thing about that is the next person that we meet doesn't get our full love, and we can't, give and receive it. So they pay a bit of the price, unfortunately, until we've done the healing.
Or a lot.
Yeah. So until we can forgive ourselves for, whatever we allowed ourselves to go through, or, those kind of relationships, we can't fully love, and we can't get into our heart again. So that would have taken a lot of forgiveness work. And yeah, so that I would come across that a lot with clients as well. It's a huge thing. Forgiveness of past relationships and hurts, and allowing yourself to be loved again, and allowing love in again. Yeah, it's massive.
When we're younger, back again to like the inner child and the parent, from the parental perspective. And again, if you have kids, you kind of notice, you start to notice all the your own patterns as well. But I suppose going back to that space, realizing, that, it's like, if you're a good girl or you're not a good girl or whatever, the way, if you do this, if you follow the rules and regulations this way from your parents, then that's a tick for you or whatever. So, I mean, we learn all of these ways of being, and obviously lots of times it just kind of kills the authenticity in us, or who we really are, kind of, and self-expression is shoved down. So you have to behave sometimes in it. So we're on about unconditional love, and it's around the heart, but we've been kind of raised to be, it's conditional love,
It's completely conditioned. And
Yeah.
even, so like, even, I think we had this conversation before, our parents, at some stage, and our parents, and how they were conditioned in school to be the good girl or good boy, or they were caned. So it was so serious, and the traumas are so deeply ingrained. And and like, I suppose even at the moment with everything that's going on, and it brings up all of that, where they're so afraid of authority now, and that's what I worry about for my child, that he will be so conditioned to do what he's told, which I know you have to, but I want him to keep his own originality, his own spark, his own little bit of defiance.
Mine are well on the way to coming out of that. That's for sure. But again, I suppose it's balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have, you have to obviously have a certain amount of, it's respecting the way people live, but not actually that being the detriment of your own. And that's where I think when we lose ourselves in other people's perspectives, and it was only recently a while ago, but where I looked at respect differently. Whereas when you were growing up, my belief or my interpretation of respect was that you kind of did what you were told and you honored your elders and you didn't ask questions. And that might have meant that you were quiet, or you had to believe what they believed in order to be. That was what respect meant. And then totally got a whole different perspective on respect of being, no, that's just what they believe, and I respect that that's their belief and their model of the world. A bit of QTT here, but also it didn't mean I had to change my perspective or how I wanted to live. And that was a huge kind of awakening point for me. And even then, bring that information to my kids as well, and just letting them kind of self-honor and express in the way that's real for them as well, and just allowing the space, I think, to do that. Often when we were younger, you were told, you were given something as well. And I'm not saying my way of parenting is totally different than it was when my kids were small. Now they're all big. But it was only once I got into holistic health and started to change my paradigms and beliefs and everything that I started to kind of really change my, become more of a conscious parent. But going back to what was I saying on the respect level, is once you kind of change your perspective on something or the way you're looking at it, everything often the whole thing changes. So say for instance, the younger, you'd say, oh, if you do this now, oh, you're really good now, and you can get this, I'll give you this, or you can go here, you can go there. And then a child learning that is the connection between how to get what I want. Yeah. And losing their sense of originality and their own spark, their own light. And you may have been taught, oh, you don't step out into the light, or you have to be the same as everyone else. Something came up recently, actually, in a conversation I had with a family member as well. And I was just kind of thinking, oh my God, this is still, but it's like, don't step, follow the crowd, and don't step out of that because it's safe. Because, our parents and before that have often been taught that you just follow what you're told, because that's where you're safe. If you step out and you're different from anybody else, then you're going to be, everybody's looking, and it's a safe place. So I think it has to go back to the root of changing all of that, and all of that is stored in the body, isn't it?
Completely, yeah.
Heart opening is where it starts, and for women, the 3 power centers, the yoni, the womb, and the heart is where all that wisdom is, and that raw potential that women have, and they have to awaken to know the personal power, and when a woman changes her own way of being and respects herself and gives herself that self-love, that actually she's doing herself and her children a service. And the other way around, you actually, to me, after being both sides of it and still learning and growing and evolving, but actually realizing that I wasn't, when I put myself last, I was doing a service to my own children, because what are they going to do? Follow the same pattern, or bring it out in a different behavior that's not going to be empowering as well. So I think the heart, getting back into the heart and really going self-love, and actually accepting that that's part and a necessary part of healing and evolving and growing and being a better parent or partner or whatever role it is. It is about yourself. It is about you being self-acceptance and actually being authentic and shining your light.
Completely. And as you say, it's what they see as well. It's not what you tell them, it's what they see. So if you're saying you've got to love yourself and you were putting yourself last, and you're, at the end of the day, running a house and, you know, doing your job and making dinner and just being stressed. That's what they see. It's not what you say, it's what they see.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
and it's the whole thing of children recreating that home life in the future with their other relationships, and that's what you're actually teaching them to do that as well. So it's so much more. It's so important, and it's the whole thing of like filling your cup first, like and I know it's very cliche, but the airplane when it's going down and the mask, and put your mask on first. It's so true.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And you know, it's those little reminders, isn't it? Those simple reminders, like the aeroplane you're talking about there. And you can just explain that a bit more, but it's those reminders that are the simple things that when you find yourself in that situation, you remember that, and suddenly you're back in and saying, okay, look after yourself first, and you'll work whatever you need to do you come from a better place. Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
I do think as women, like we are the natural caretakers and nurturers, and we give and give and give, and it's like, and I liked you had said something to me earlier on about accepting the self-love, and it is about allowing it in and accepting it instead of giving and not allowing anything back in return. That's not love either. You know, it's not, because you're not looking
they,
after. Yeah,
they
you
say
know.
that the most difficult thing women find is to be able to receive.
Yeah, completely. And then it's given from, it can end up in resentment. It can end up, it's, you know, it's, it
100%. Yeah.
completely is. So yeah, no, it's all about the little things, like the smallest things. Like I've a self-love diary in my course, and it's so simple, but it's
Yeah.
actually about scheduling it. I actually sat down this morning and scheduled for my week, something I've just gotten to the hang of, and put a half an hour in for myself. You know,
Perfect.
it's
Yeah.
only so it's the small things, it's the really small things, and the things that you need to work at the start to remember.
Yeah.
Put them in.
Do you want to run through just the course, kind of what you talk about, just a quick run through so people get an idea of what the link will be there anyway, they'll be able to go on, but just to a quick kind of run through of what's in it, what's in the container. So
Okay, so it's basically it's it's all things self-love. So it's basically a journey to self-love. So it's starting off. So there's a lot of different techniques and exercises in it, which can be done. They're very, very simple exercises. And like I said at the start, I would have done a lot of my course on Louise Hay. So what I find amazingly profound are her affirmations, and I do use my clients quite a lot as well. So when we're talking about the inner child, when you're speaking to yourself in the mirror, so it's as simple as picking up a mirror and looking at yourself and saying I love you, and looking into your eyes. When you look into your eyes, it has such a powerful effect. You're literally reparenting yourself. And when you look into your eyes and say I love you, it sounds really easy. It's not. And I've
the
had
eyes
people
of the windows of the soul, they say. So no, it's not
yeah.
easy. Oh yeah.
And I've had people come back to me and say, I couldn't do that. You know, I find that really hard to do, because you could end up crying, you could end up numb, you could end up, but you can't hide from, when you're looking at your own eyes, you can't hide from it. So that's a really simple exercise, and something I say to somebody, is something I say to people to do every day for 30 days, just to see what comes up. So there's affirmations, there's a lot of inner child work. So exercises to connect with the inner child and healing in there as well. There's a bit of work on shadow self as well. So you're the side of yourself that you repress. And if you, so that's one of the things I'd say with self-love as well. It's allowing the emotions to come up. And when they come up, just basically welcoming them. And even, you know, just letting them be, acknowledging them and letting them pass rather than resisting them, because that's where the problems happen. So like you're saying a while ago about the good girl, or, you know, if you've an angry thought, or our anger isn't, I think one I would have heard when I was younger was little girls shouldn't be angry. So yeah. So things like that. So if you
I
are
definitely
angry,
did not hear that in my house.
I didn't say I actually got on board. But yeah, it's like it's accepting the emotions, allowing them to happen, and just acknowledging them, and that takes away their power, as it does with everything. What you resist, this, you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
what you resist persists, good one as well. And then I think when you hold that space for allowing the expression, the repressive energy or feelings to come up out of the body, then the lines of communication, you have that place of trust then within yourself as well. And the more you do that, then the more empowered you feel, because it becomes less scary what's underneath, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it's you're accepting every part of yourself. So I know you do a beautiful exercise as well, actually, in your it's the inner smile, which
the inner smile.
Yeah, that I think is so powerful as well, and allowing those parts of yourself that you've rejected, because we do reject parts of ourselves that we don't think other people are going to like, or it can be the shyness, it can be whatever part of it is that you feel disempowered with.
Yeah.
If you're not accepting that,
a lot of that can be cultural as well. These are like cultural programs, or from different countries, this is the way it's done, and so you have all that programming, don't you, as well as just all the way back. But the good news is that all of that can be changed once you decide to take that decision. You choose, because it is a choice to make a decision to start to work more on your internal issues. So we're not projecting the same stuff over and over again. We are evolving and letting go of that, because what happens is our kids are, and when we were younger as well, like you were on about when you went through your rebel stage, but there's something in you that didn't want the same patterns as your parents. So you're behaving in a certain way as well, wanting some kind of a transformational change. And often I would see with my own kids that and with myself, is the certain things I didn't want from my beliefs that I didn't agree with from my parents. So I behaved in a way to come out of that. But then some of those behaviors were disempowering, because it wasn't given in an empowering way, whereas when the lines of communication are open and you start to do more work on your inner self, then the change is less traumatic. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's my experience, and even with my own children as well. But cultural, because I know your background is multicultural as well, so that's interesting as well, in regards to belief systems as well, isn't it?
And that would be like, as I said, that would about girls not being angry, or feeling not heard is another one. And that was, I suppose, that's part of the rebel part as well, and that's part of the work. Like you say, it's a reaction. And I suppose as well, because I know your daughters as well are
my multiculturals from Hong Kong, so they'd have Chinese as well as Irish. So, and Ireland is becoming a multicultural society, so there's a lot of that kind of been aired as well. So it's really interesting. Once the lines of communication are open and things are more transparent, I think that's where we'll see the positive change as well, and people start owning their own stuff. Or at least owning the choice, owning that they have a choice to change. Because of course a lot of stuff we have really isn't ours. It's come down from the ancestral lines and all of society and all of that. But what we do have in our control is that we realize we do have a choice in our own lives to change what we want to, what's not working for us. And the first step then is to going back in, is the journey to self-love, isn't it? It's going to the heart, starting with the heart and going in and deciding, what feels right. What's working right for me now, what feels right, because our feelings are our navigation tool, aren't they? And if you're not in your body, then you can't feel what feels right or what doesn't feel right. And lots of people are in their head and they're not grounded, and they're not able to get into their heart, get into their, into the connect with the earth and actually really find out how they feel. And lots of people are afraid to come into that space because, they have anxiety or stress in the body. So all of this stuff.
The mind is, when you're in your mind, it's like you're in self-protect mode as well, and it's protecting from the fear. So people are nearly afraid that if they do become if they do get into their bodies with it, that they're leaving themselves vulnerable, or when you put your feelings out there, you're going to be hurt. So it's
what happens then, isn't it, Hazel, is that then we make decisions from a place that isn't, we make bad decisions, and we wonder why we got into, into certain situations, because we weren't coming from, that in the body, we weren't in the body, we weren't in the feeling mind, the body, that will actually give us a good indication. Our intuition is in there, so a good indication of, whether this is right or whether it's not right for me. And everyone's going to be different based on their experiences. So,
that's actually something you were asking me earlier on about business, and that's something that I've used a lot in my work as well in the last year or two. Listening to my intuition, which I wouldn't have so much. I would have been in the head a lot, and I will know when something doesn't feel right, when a deal doesn't feel right, when a customer doesn't feel right, and it never steers you wrong. It really doesn't. We can fight very hard sometimes not to listen to things as well, but
you're only talking about that. I think it was yesterday or the day before about something. Yesterday, something didn't feel right. You were saying,
yeah.
So you didn't make that move because it didn't feel.
Yeah, and before I would have, and that's the thing, I suppose, if any women are listening that are in that space and not sure what to do, and it's actually a lovely little exercise I've done with a few people, is to basically go in, and it's like you can picture a speedometer in your mind if you're not sure, if you're can't connect your intuition very very easily. It's just a start off tool, and it's basically you'll connect in, and you'll have a barometer in your mind of 1 to 100 or whatever it is, and just connect in, and first of all to your heart, to someone you love, to clear it, and then ask for your divine intuition or a connection to your higher self, and then ask your question and just see what it goes to, if it's 1 or 100, and that will really, it's always right. Always, it's a very simple little tool, because I know when I first started, I found it really hard to connect, or to know how to connect, because I left it so it was so far behind me, if that makes sense. I hadn't connected in so long. So it really helps you to step into your power when you're connected to your intuition, because that is it's your superpower. It's your,
Yeah. And the difference even between then connecting with the intuition, that once it feels right in the heart, and, people talk about gut feeling, once it feels right in both those places in the body, then the head you can check in with the head then and follow later, but to get a feeling first. And I do know now from that a lot of times, sometimes when you do go into the feeling in the gut, there can be old stuff there that wouldn't give you a complete, direction, but the heart will, and you do get a general, you can feel in and see if something feels right, and then check the head, when you want to make a decision, or, there's a choice or something that you want to do. So, you've given lovely meditation and a few examples there. Do you want to just recap, and before we finish up, just a quick recap on a few pointers for maybe everyday use? Something you can do every day that's simple, and it only takes a couple of minutes, or even a few quotes just for people to remember. Just a quick recap.
So I suppose there's lots of little tools that you can use to connect in with your heart, and one is essential oils, which is a really really quick fix, I suppose, if you want to call it that. So the likes of lavender will really help you connect in with your heart. Sandalwood, and you can just add those to a roller blend and have them handy if you need them. I use them quite a lot myself. And they really help me to connect back in if I'm ever feeling.
I will be doing one on essential oils actually later. So it's great. Yeah. Oh no, give the few there, but it'll be great. Yeah.
They're amazing, and they're something that really absorbs really quickly, changes your vibration immediately, and they really really help. I'm holding a rose quartz crystal as well, which is the master healer for your heart, and that's something that's gorgeous to have around. So I suppose those little connections, like a daily connection in with your heart once a day. So just to connect in, do a visualization, like connecting with someone that you love, and then asking what's my next step from here, or if you have to make a decision, what can I do from here? Meditation is huge. So going into the stillness for 10 minutes a day, something that I don't always do, but I find when I do, I make such better decisions. Everything comes easier. And it doesn't have to be a guided meditation. Like, I love guided meditations, but it can be just 5 minutes of just connecting with your breath and going in there and just letting the stillness happen. You know,
breath is very important, isn't it?
oh, it's amazing. It really is. Like, and it's something I don't do it every day, and it's something I keep saying that I should. But when I do it, I see a massive, massive difference.
Nature as well, just kind of getting outside.
Yeah, nature is amazing. Becoming grounded is a really big one. What else? I have loads, and I can't think off the top of my head.
There's some, well, they're great now because you just mentioned, and I know a lot of people, so even just rose quartz, as you said, some essential oils. Because where you know, are supposed to be embodied, you're using your 5 senses, aren't you? So
yeah. And just coming back to, and that's actually a grounding game I do with my little boy as well. And so, and it's amazing. It's
5 things.
Yes, it's just fabulous, and it works so well. And that, like, I noticed that with him, when he becomes ungrounded, he stamps his feet trying to ground himself as well. And if I do that with him, he's back in straight away.
Do you want to run through that before you finish up?
The five
things, yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose it's really good for people with kids at the moment that are basically back to school, and they don't know what's going on with the masks, and everybody is, you know, the world is a scary place. So it's just literally going back to you're basically getting them to connect with the breath really quickly, and it's just name 5 things around you can see. So whatever it is, it's, you know, it's your desk, it's, you know, it's the wall, it's whatever. And as they do it, you'll notice their breath begin to slow down and calm. And then it's 4 things that you can hear. So 4 things you can hear around you, whether it's, you know, the sound of my voice, your breathing, your foot tapping, whatever it is. 3 things that you can touch. So it could be my jacket, my hair on my shoulders, my eyelash on my cheek. 2 things that you can smell, and if you can't smell them, something that you like to smell. And 1 thing that you can taste, or that you like to taste. And by the time you're finished that, and it helps for adults as well, because there are a lot of adults at the moment that are in panic and overwhelm. I really notice that for clients coming to me that are physically in panic, having panic attacks. So simple little things like that. And actually another lovely one is havening as well. So just
yeah.
And that's a gorgeous.
I'll have you back at some again anyway, because I know you probably come on for something else again. Yeah. But no, they're perfect. I'm trying to keep it within the hour, just so it's. You know, I say that just so people will watch. Yes, watchable. You know, sometimes people find, oh my God, it's
I know.
So I just can't. That's why I thought just have an hour, and so people will get through it and watch it. So you've given great tips and tools and techniques. And that's great. And I suppose with those 5 senses is it takes your mind off whatever the stress is, and you're focused totally, and your energy and awareness is in on what you're doing, and totally brings you back in. Yeah.
What kids do in their reptilian brain as well. So it's back out of that.
We could be talking all day here. We'll have you back on again anyway, and that's fantastic. So some great knowledge, and as I say, tools, tips and techniques. And thanks so much for being my first guest on Women's Empowerment Hour. And for Hazel's details, again, it's blossomhealing.ie. Yeah. And is there anything, do you want to just quickly chat about the meditation? And
so there's a meditation. I think Siobhan is going to share the link, and it's basically just a free meditation that will be sent to your inbox when you put your details in it. It's 10-minute meditation, and it's connecting to your inner child and forgiveness. It's a beautiful exercise, and it's one
gorgeous. I
quite like myself. So if you are looking to connect with your inner child, and if you're looking to let go of any resentment or any past traumas, it's a good place to start. So
and if anybody is interested as well, working one-to-one, you can get all of Hazel's details on her website mentioned, and the link will be above as well. So that's the end of the first edition of Women's Empowerment Hour, and thanks so much for joining me, and looking forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.